A palpable tension held its grip on Paris in 1917. It was the third disastrous year of World War I. France was losing badly and looking for someone to blame. In mid-February, word spread through the city that one of the most famous women in Europe had been arrested and accused of spying for Germany, France's enemy in the war. Her name was Mata Hari. At the time of her arrest, Mata Hari was known across the continent as an exotic dancer. Her trial would bring her greater fame and infamy as one of history's most recognized secret agents. But whether Mata Hari actually spied at all is still subject to debate.
There's disagreement about almost everything about Mata Hari. Whether she spied, whether she didn't spy, whether she meant to spy. There's a tremendous fog of confusion about her.
It was a fog Mata Hari herself helped create. One that would ultimately be her downfall. In 1905, 12 years before Mata Hari's arrest, Paris was a very different place. The city was the center of European creativity, innovation, and decadence. Mata Hari fit right in. In the spring of that year, she had become the toast of the town with a remarkable exotic dance performance for the city's cultural elite.
Her first public appearance at the Musée Grimé, which was a museum of Asian art, was both an enormous event, and it was shocking because nothing like it had been seen before. She had the main hall of the museum transformed into some semblance of an Oriental temple.
There were potted palms, there was apparently incense flowing throughout the room, and Mata Hari had a wonderful costume.
She wore very diaphanous veils, a sort of metallic jeweled bra, and a headpiece, and there was an awful lot of flesh. There was an awful lot of Mata Hari visible. It was very emotional dancing with very slow, sinuous, sexual movements.
She had a very dramatic conclusion to her dances where she would end up sort of prone on the floor, partly clothed. It was apparently quite a spectacle of her, you know, sort of lounging on the floor with her breastplates and her headdress and not much else.
Parisian high society loved it. Mata Hari personifies all the poetry of India, its mysticism, its voluptuousness, its hypnotizing charm, one reviewer wrote. To see Mata Hari is an unforgettable spectacle, a paradise-like dream. Mata Hari took the dream and ran with it. In no time, she was dancing at theaters and salons across Europe. But 12 years later, in a cell at Paris's Saint-Lazare prison, official transcripts show that her only audience was a French interrogator.
We would like you to answer some specific questions. Would you please tell us about your past?
I was raised in Leeuwarden until the age of 12.
Leeuwarden was a Dutch town, thousands of miles from the exotic places in Asia Mata Hari often claimed as her home. In fact, Mata Hari was born Margareta Gertruda Zella in 1876. She had a carefree childhood as the favored daughter of a wealthy hatmaker. Cherished and coddled by her father, she came to see herself as an orchid among dandelions. But when she was 13, Margareta's idyllic life received a startling blow. In a single year, her father went bankrupt and abandoned the family. Then, her mother unexpectedly died.
I think that the way that she developed the ability to survive was to invent fantasies about herself. She took great comfort and refuge in sort of imagining how she would like her life to be and imagining how she would like herself to be.
What Margareta wanted most was to live a glamorous, adoration-filled life, something hard to do in a small Dutch town. She quickly learned that her striking looks and youthful charm could help take her to the life she dreamed of.
I think from her teen years on, she discovered that one thing that she could do well was attract men. And in fact, she was thrown out of school when she was 17 for liaisons with men.
A year later, Margareta put her newly discovered charms to work when she answered a newspaper ad from a Dutch officer looking for a wife.
On March 30th, 1895, I became engaged to Monsieur Rudolph MacLeod, a captain of the colonial troops. I married him on July 11th, and he took me with him to the Dutch East Indies.
By age 22, Margareta was living in the Indies, a wife and mother of 2 young children. But she would be forever changed by her experiences in this foreign land. The Indies were liberating for Margareta, and she began to imagine new possibilities for herself.
She was not somebody who was deeply wedded to the ordinary, everyday, gotta eat, gotta get the laundry done, gotta look after the children kind of life. This didn't go down very well with her husband.
Over the course of 4 years, Margareta's marriage disintegrated. The relationship suffered a final devastating blow when the MacLeod's 2-year-old son suddenly and mysteriously died. The MacLeods returned to Holland, and Rudolph divorced Margareta, taking their daughter with him.
If you think about what options would have been open to her as a divorced woman with no money, I mean, she could have become a governess. She could have gone and worked in a shop. I mean, neither of those were particularly glamorous or exciting, but they probably would have kept the wolf from the door. But instead, her way of dealing with her grief, because she lost not just 1 child, but 2, was to really immerse herself in this fantasy life.
Will you take up your narrative where you left off, please?
In 1904, I separated from my husband, and I came to Paris. There I gambled, and I won.
She once gave a newspaper interview and someone asked her, well, why did you go to Paris? And she said, I thought that's where every runaway wife went. Paris was this kind of mecca of bohemian culture at the time. And, you know, if you're going to reinvent yourself, that was the best place you could go.
Margareta used her seductive charm to make her way into the city's cultural circles. And she soon realized what she could do to stay there.
I thought of dancing the dances of the Indies, using the observations that I had made there. I started out under the name of Mata Hari and was immediately launched into my career.
Mata Hari meant Eye of the Dawn in Malay. But Margareta knew she would need more than a new name to transform herself into a star.
She engaged in what we would call now PR tactics. She would do things like have a series of photographs taken of herself, and then she would send them to the newspapers so they would print something about her.
Mata Hari was incredibly good at manipulating the press. In one interview, she'll say, oh, I was the daughter of a Brahmin temple mistress. And in another interview, she'll say, I grew up on the banks of the Ganges. And another interview, she'll say, I grew up in the Dutch East Indies. I mean, she would sort of say whatever she thought the reporter wanted to hear.
Her tactics paid off. Before long, Mata Hari was appearing at prestigious venues throughout Europe and attracting the attention of many powerful men.
This was the Belle Epoque. This was the period in which every well-to-do man had a mistress. This group of ladies were referred to by a number of terms. One of them was les horizontales, the horizontal ones, that is, the ladies who earned their keep on their back. They were set up in fabulous apartments or houses. They were kept very well with servants. They had a lot of money for clothing, for horses, for furs, jewels.
It was a lifestyle Mata Hari had dreamed of. She joined the ranks of les horizontales, and in addition to dancing for sold-out theaters, began performing for audiences of one.
For Mata Hari, most of the men were military officers or diplomats. They had some connection really to government service.
I love officers. I've loved them all my life. My greatest pleasure is being able to sleep with them without thinking about money. And I like making comparisons between diverse nations.
For nearly a decade, Mata Hari lived her dream. She traveled extensively, lived lavishly, and indulged her every want. A much-heralded celebrity, she was the pampered mistress of many powerful men. But those powerful men would soon take Mata Hari and all of Europe down a dark and deadly path. When war erupted in the summer of 1914, the decadent world in which Mata Hari had thrived came to a sudden end.
The mood of the European public changed fairly abruptly. The newspapers were filled day after day of the lists of the wounded and dead. Suddenly that high life looked sinful, looked despicable, and Mata Hari was the symbol of it.
As the war effort dragged on, France began to suffer horrendous losses. While France desperately struggled to defend itself against the invading armies of Germany and its allies, fear percolated about the enemy within.
France is seeking to explain how this could have happened. And so they look around for weaknesses in the social fabric. And spies are a convenient place to look.
Spy mania swept across France. Everyone was suspect, and no one more so than Mata Hari.
She had consorted with men of high rank in the German army and the French army. She had an assumed identity. She was seen as being a sort of woman without a history in a strange way. And so it was almost natural that she would be placed on a watch list.
Once the toast of Paris, Mata Hari was now a woman under suspicion. The French love affair with her had ended.
One of the reasons why she would have been on the list of suspects is simply because of her status as this international woman. And the intelligence services in Britain, as they were in France, as they were in Germany, were keeping tabs on those kinds of people for two reasons. One is that they might be involved in intelligence against your country. The other is that they might actually be useful as intelligence agents for your side.
Nations on both sides of the conflict began to view Mata Hari in a new light. In 1916, the Germans thought Mata Hari might be useful to them.
Around May 1916, I was in my house in The Hague. The doorbell rang, and I found myself in the presence of Monsieur Kramer, German consul in Amsterdam. He began, "Would you like to be of service to us in gathering information? If you would, I have 20,000 francs to give to you." He handed me 3 small bottles. "You will have to write to us with secret ink and sign with the number H21. With my 20,000 francs in hand, I took my leave of Kramer.
Much is made of the fact that Mata Hari took money from the Germans, and much is made that this was a contract for espionage. I think that's baloney. She took money from the Germans the same way she took money from Frenchmen, from Russians, from Italians, from Spaniards, from Dutchmen, from Englishmen. She took money from men. That's what she did for a living.
Whether Mata Hari intended to spy or not, the Germans thought they had a new agent. But 2 months after her encounter with Kramer, Mata Hari did something no spy is supposed to do. She fell in love.
I met a Russian officer, Captain Vadim de Maslov. He became my lover, and it was a great love on both sides.
She refers to him as the only man she ever loved, and I think he might have been. After they had started their affair, after she was deeply committed to him at an emotional level, he was wounded.
After Vadim was injured on the battlefield, Mata Hari was eager to be by his side. She queried one of her patrons on how to get a permit that would allow her into the military zone, and was directed to the head of French intelligence, Georges Ledoux. During the course of their meeting, Ledoux broached the subject of working for French intelligence. Mata Hari was intrigued and said she would be willing if the pay was right.
The figure of 1 million francs is mentioned, and Mata Hari's eyes really light up at that, because that's a sort of sum of money that in her mind is going to enable her to retire.
I thought to myself, here is my life, well planned. I will do whatever the captain asks of me. Captain Ledoux will pay me, I will marry my lover, and I will be the happiest woman in the world.
While this seemed like a great coup for Mata Hari, the real question was, why would Georges Ledoux hire a woman who was on both French and British watch lists?
Some think that he hired her taking a chance, knowing what she was, thinking he could maybe get some information from her and it wouldn't be much of a risk. And then some think that he might have hired her knowing that she was a suspicious character because she would be an easy setup for a public trial.
Whatever his reasoning, whether to make Mata Hari a spy or a scapegoat, Ledoux sent the famous dancer and seductress off on her assignment. But Mata Hari had failed to tell Ledoux about her contact with German intelligence. She was now in the pay of both German and French espionage agencies, and she was the only one who knew it. Mata Hari's assignment was to travel to Belgium, where she would sleep her way up the German chain of command. Through her pillow talk, she would provide the French with critical military intelligence. But the plan went awry, and Mata Hari found herself stranded in Spain. She contacted Ledoux for instructions on how to proceed, but he never replied. Mata Hari decided to take matters into her own hands. It was a fatal mistake.
I thought to myself, I can make contact with the Germans, and it will speed things up. At that time, had I found a way to sleep with the German ambassador, I would have done so. It is by such means that one arrives at important things. Therefore, I decided to act.
She was looking for a high German official that she could seduce and perhaps gain information from, turn this back to Ledoux, and claim her just payment.
She sets out on this mission, and the first thing she does is she contacts the German military attaché Arnold Kalle in Madrid and introduces herself, and she thinks this is the beginning of this great triumph that she's going to have.
Armed with her German code name, H-21, Mata Hari told Kalle she was working for Germany. Then she did what she knew best.
I was very charming. I did everything that a woman can do in such circumstances when she desires to seduce a man. And I understood that Van Kalle was mine.
Mata Hari quickly sent a letter to Ledoux reporting on her success. But she sent it through the hotel post, and it was promptly intercepted by hotel employees working for the Germans.
This all immediately gets back to Van Kalle, and it's as if a trap has been set. He knows straight away that Mata Hari's working for the French.
Kalle proceeded to send a series of telegrams from Madrid to his superiors in Berlin, outlining his contact with Agent H-21.
He transmits information to Berlin using a code that the French have already broken. Some historians think this is an accident. Others think that it was deliberate, that he knew she was a double agent and he wanted to punish her.
When a listening post atop the Eiffel Tower intercepted Kalle's Madrid to Berlin telegrams, they landed on Ledoux's desk. Ledoux seized on them, feeling certain that Agent H-21, who is extensively described in the communiques, was indeed Mata Hari. When the dancer turned spy returned to Paris, Ledoux was waiting. On the morning of February 13, 1917, Mata Hari was arrested and charged as a German spy.
This is all taking place in 1917, at a point when things were going extremely badly for the French. And here they've got this German spy, they caught her red-handed, and, you know, she's going to be made to pay for the terrible losses that France has suffered.
After her arrest, almost none of Mata Hari's many lovers came to her side. Even Vadim ultimately denounced her.
Today, around me, everything is collapsing. Everyone turns his back, even he for whom I would have gone through fire. Never would I have believed in so much human cowardice. Well, so be it. I am alone.
After more than 3 months in prison, Mata Hari became increasingly desperate. When the interrogator questioned her about the Madrid-Berlin telegrams, Mata Hari owned up to her past.
I suppose she reaches a point where she thinks, I may as well come clean and tell him the whole story of accepting this 20,000 francs, being given these bottles of secret inks by the German attaché. But she says, well, I just threw them into the canal. I wasn't interested in being a spy.
I never considered myself as enrolled with the Germans. From the day that I threw the ink into the water, I thought that I had washed myself of all contact with them. That I took up contact with them again in the form of Van Kalle was because I had entered into the French service, and that in order to earn my million, I thought I would be able to achieve great things.
Mata Hari didn't know it yet, but her revelation had sealed her fate.
It, of course, was the aha moment for her interrogators. It was the, yes, we always knew you were hiding something from us. You were a nasty, lying little spy.
After a 2-day trial and less than 1 hour of deliberations, the 40-year-old Mata Hari was found guilty and sentenced to die by firing squad.
The trial turned very much on her lifestyle and persona. It was made clear that she was damned for having lovers who were officers of all armies and all nationalities. No one could ever point to something she had revealed to the Germans that had given them a substantial military advantage, or anything she'd ever passed to the Germans.
She certainly dabbled in espionage, and if that was what the French were concerned about, then she was guilty. But there were a lot of much better spies, people who were documented as being good spies, who were spared the death penalty. And so I think, again, it's the question of who she was and when she was arrested that led to her death.
On the morning of October 15, 1917, in the final hours before her execution, Mata Hari spoke with one of the nuns who had comforted her in prison.
Don't fear, sister. I know how to die without weakness. You shall see a good end. Don't cry. Be cheerful like me. Imagine that I am going on a long journey, that I will return, and we will find each other again.
Mata Hari's execution could be really regarded as her final performance. When she appears before the firing squad, she's dressed up in her best clothes. You know, she's done her utmost to do her hair and put on her makeup. And the story goes that she refuses a blindfold. She refuses to have her hands tied at the stake. And she blows kisses to the nuns who are kneeling, praying for her, and to the soldiers who are her executioners.
There is a report that one of the soldiers said, "By God, the lady knows how to die." I think it's probably true in spirit if it might not have been true in fact. She died heroically. She died as a performance, and it was another good one.
Four days after Mata Hari faced the firing squad, French spy master Georges Ledoux was arrested on charges of spying for Germany.
I would say that Georges Ledoux was playing a very fine game in blaming somebody else for what he himself was probably engaged in.
After the war ended, Ledoux was quietly court-martialed and acquitted. France was victorious. There was no need to continue the spy hunt. The French government sealed Mata Hari's files, and in the vacuum of information, the fantasy of Mata Hari flourished in the public imagination.
There's even a rumor that goes round that she wasn't really executed after all. She actually escaped from the firing squad, or she threw open a fur coat, and beneath the fur coat she was naked and her body was so dazzlingly beautiful that the men couldn't shoot straight and she managed to escape.
Over the course of the century, Mata Hari has become a potent symbol, an icon of the seductive, exotic, and dangerous woman.
She still provokes enormous emotional responses from people. She still has that power to move people, and she's been dead for almost 100 years. This is quite extraordinary.
That enduring power to enchant and beguile is exactly what Mata Hari would have wanted.